At the train station, I was preparing for a quiet trip to visit my late wife's hometown. My daughter-in-law handed me a cup of coffee and smiled. "Drink it, Dad. It's a long journey," she said gently. She made sure I finished every drop before boarding. Moments later, the world around me began to tilt. My hands trembled. My legs weakened. I collapsed inside the train, fading fast. Through the haze, I saw a woman rush toward me and say, "I'm going to save you." When I woke up, what she told me changed everything. Someone wanted me to disappear. So I decided to let them think they had succeeded, but not in the usual way. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen. If this story speaks to you, please comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Also, just so you know, this story contains certain fictionalized elements created for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to real names or settings are unintentional, but the message I'm sharing is meant to be valuable. That October morning in 2024, I woke with a sense of unease I couldn't quite place. It sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold, though the autumn sun was already streaming through the bedroom curtains. By noon, I'd understand why. But by then, it would be far too late. I'd been planning this trip for weeks. My first journey back to Angela's hometown since she'd passed 4 years ago. The thought of walking those familiar streets without her felt like reopening a wound that had barely begun to heal. Still, I'd promised myself I'd go. Angela would have wanted me to visit her mother's grave to lay flowers to remember. So I'd bought the train ticket, packed my small leather suitcase, and tried not to think too hard about the empty seat beside me that should have been hers. The house felt too quiet that morning. I moved through it slowly, my joints protesting the early hour and the October chill that had seeped through the old walls overnight. 72 years had a way of making mornings harder than they used to be. I'd built this house with Angela back in the 90s, back when I was running the telecom company, and she was teaching elementary school. Every room held memories, her laugh echoing in the kitchen, her reading glasses on the nightstand, the garden she'd loved that I still couldn't bear to change. I was in the bedroom checking my suitcase one last time when I heard the front door open. My first thought was, Ethan, my son, had a key after all. But Ethan was supposed to be on a business trip to Chicago. He'd told me so just 2 days ago. "Theodore." Diana's voice floated up the stairs. "Are you ready? I thought I'd drive you to the station." I paused, one hand on the suitcase zipper. Diana, my daughter-in-law. She'd never offered to drive me anywhere before. In the 7 years since she'd married Ethan, we'd maintained a careful distance, polite at holidays, cordial at family dinners, but never warm. I knew she found me old-fashioned. I knew she thought I meddled too much in Ethan's life. And if I was honest with myself, I'd never quite warmed to her either. There was something in her eyes that never matched her smile. "That's very kind of you," I called down, keeping my voice neutral. "But I was planning to drive myself." "Oh, don't be silly." Her footsteps on the stairs, now quick and light. "You shouldn't leave your car at the station for a week. I'm happy to drop you off." She appeared in the doorway, dressed in a charcoal blazer and dark jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. At 38, Diana was striking in a sharp, angular way. This morning, she wore what I'd come to think of as her professional smile, the one that showed teeth but never quite reached her eyes. "Ethan's in Chicago," she continued, "so I'm rattling around the house anyway. Might as well make myself useful." There it was again, that feeling in my chest, tightening. Something about the way she stood in the doorway, blocking it slightly. Something about how her eyes flickered to the suitcase, then to the nightstand, where I'd left my phone and wallet. "Well," I said slowly, "if you insist." "I do." She picked up my suitcase before I could reach for it. "Come on, we should leave soon. You don't want to miss your train." The drive to Riverside Station should have taken 20 minutes. Diana stretched it to 30, taking side streets I didn't recognize, making conversation that felt rehearsed. She talked about Ethan's trip, about some project he was working on, about the weather turning cold. I watched the familiar landmarks slide past the old movie theater, where Angela and I had our first date, the park where Ethan learned to ride a bike and tried to shake the feeling that something was very wrong. "You must be looking forward to the trip," Diana said, glancing at me. "Getting away for a while." "It's not exactly a vacation," I replied. "Angela's hometown, visiting graves." "Oh, right." A pause. "Still, a change of scenery can be good. Clear your head." I didn't answer. In the side mirror, I caught a glimpse of her face, neutral, almost bland. But her hands on the steering wheel were tight knuckles, white. We pulled into the station parking lot just after 10:30. Diana insisted on walking me inside, carrying my suitcase despite my protests. Riverside Station was busier than I'd expected. For a Tuesday morning, business people hurrying with their briefcases, college students, with backpacks, elderly couples moving slowly, hand in hand. The automated announcements echoed off the high ceilings, calling out track numbers and destinations. The smell of coffee drifted from the small cafe near the ticket windows. "Let me buy you a coffee," Diana said suddenly. "For the trip. It's a long journey, you'll want something to keep you awake." "I'm fine, really," I insist. She was already steering me toward the cafe, her hand on my elbow. "It's the least I can do." "What do you like, a latte?" Before I could argue, she'd joined the line. I stood awkwardly beside her, watching the baristas work, watching other passengers come and go. That's when I saw it, just for a moment, in the reflection of the cafe's glass case. Diana's face. The professional smile had slipped. Her expression was cold, focused, like someone working through a complex problem. Then she caught me looking, and the smile snapped back into place. "2 lattes," she told the barista, then turned to me. "You still take it with just a little sugar, right?" I nodded, though I couldn't remember ever telling her how I took my coffee. She paid, collected both cups, and handed one to me. The cup was warm in my hands. The coffee smelled normal, that rich, slightly bitter aroma I'd always loved. Angela used to make my coffee every morning for 40 years. This should have felt comforting. It didn't. "Drink up." Diana said, her voice bright, almost cheerful. "You'll need your energy." I took a sip. The taste was wrong. Not obviously wrong, but off somehow. More bitter than usual, with a strange chemical aftertaste that lingered on my tongue. "Is it okay?" Diana was watching me intently. "It's fine," I lied. "Thank you." "Finish it," she urged. "The train leaves in 15 minutes. You should stay hydrated." There was something in her voice, an edge, an insistence that made the stone in my chest grow heavier. But I was raised to be polite, to accept kindness gracefully. So I drank. I drained the cup, while Diana watched, nodding approvingly, smiling that smile that never quite fit her face. "Good," she said softly. "That's good." We walked to the platform together. My suitcase suddenly felt heavier than it should, and I was grateful when Diana carried it the last few yards. Track 5. The train was already there, its silver sides gleaming in the late morning sun. Other passengers were boarding, finding their seats, stowing their luggage. "I have a safe trip, Theodore," Diana said as I reached for the door handle. She leaned in close, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, sharp and floral. "A very safe trip." There was something in her voice, something that made my skin crawl. I turned to look at her, really look at her. And for just a moment I saw past the smile. Her eyes were cold. Not angry, not sad, just empty. Like she was looking at a problem that was about to solve itself. I started to say something, but my thoughts were beginning to scatter. The platform seemed very bright suddenly. Too bright. "You should board," Diana said. "Don't want to miss it." I climbed the steps into the train car, my legs feeling strangely disconnected. Found my seat 17B by the window. Sat down heavily, the worn fabric rough beneath my hands. Through the window, I could see Diana still standing on the platform. She raised one hand in a small wave, then turned and walked away, her ponytail swinging. The train lurched into motion. Buildings began to slide past. My suitcase was overhead. My phone was in my jacket pocket. Everything was as it should be, except it wasn't. My mouth felt dry despite the coffee. My fingers tingled, going numb at the tips. The brightness I'd noticed on the platform was spreading, bleeding into everything, making the edges of my vision shimmer and blur. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't obey. I tried to call out, but my voice came out as a whisper. By the time I reached my seat on the train, the world had started to blur at the edges. Something was very wrong. 15 minutes after the train left Riverside Station, I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. It started as a tingle, the kind you get when your hand falls asleep. But within seconds, the numbness spread up my arms like ice water crawling through my veins. The train car tilted and swayed around me, a carousel spinning too fast, and I gripped the armrest to steady myself. My knuckles were white, but I couldn't feel the pressure. I couldn't feel anything. The metallic taste in my mouth was stronger now, sharp and bitter, coating my tongue like old pennies. My heart hammered against my ribs, thump, 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 a drum beating out of sync with the rhythm of the train wheels below. I tried to swallow, but my throat felt thick, swollen, as if something was closing in from the inside. Diana! The thought cut through the fog like a blade. That coffee. That damn coffee she'd handed me at the station. Her smile too bright, her voice too sweet. It's your favorite dad. I made sure they got it just right. I'd noticed the bitterness, the strange aftertaste, but I'd brushed it off. Blamed it on the cheap beans, the rushed morning, the way my tongue always felt off when I was nervous. But it wasn't the beans. She did this. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, and I sucked in a sharp breath, or tried to. My lungs felt heavy, sluggish, as if I were breathing through wet cotton. The world around me blurred at the edges, faces of passengers, dissolving into shapeless smudges of color. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered and pulsed, too bright, too sharp, stabbing into my skull. I needed to stand. I needed to move. I needed to do something. My legs wobbled as I pushed myself up from the seat, and for a brief, weightless moment, I thought I might make it. I thought I could stumble to the bathroom, splash cold water on my face, force my body to fight back. But my knees buckled. The floor rushed up to meet me, and I collapsed into the narrow aisle with a dull, graceless thud. My cheek pressed against the cold, sticky linoleum, and somewhere far away, I heard a woman scream. Footsteps, voices. The train lurched and swayed, and I felt hands on my shoulders rolling me onto my back. The ceiling lights above were blinding, spinning like stars, and I squeezed my eyes shut against the glare. Sir, can you hear me? The voice was calm, firm, cutting through the chaos like a lighthouse beam through fog. A woman's voice, not Diana's. I forced my eyes open. A face hovered above me, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, short-cropped auburn hair, pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. She was young, maybe mid-30s, dressed in jeans and a navy sweater, a paperback book still clutched in one hand. Her other hand was on my wrist, fingers pressed against my pulse. "Stay with me," she said, her voice steady, almost soothing. "My name is Julia. I'm a doctor. Can you tell me your name?" I tried to speak, but my tongue was a dead weight in my mouth. My lips moved, formed the shape of the syllables, but no sound came out. Julia's eyes narrowed, her gaze sweeping over me with clinical precision. She leaned closer, lifting one of my eyelids with her thumb, studying my pupils. Her jaw tightened, dilated. She muttered more to herself than to me. "Uneven. And he's sweating cold." She raised her voice, sharp and commanding now. "I need someone to pull the emergency brake. Now." A murmur rippled through the train car, confusion, panic, resistance. "We can't just stop the train," a man's voice protested from somewhere behind her. "We're in the middle of—" "Do it," Julia snapped, not even looking up. "This man is in medical distress. If we don't get him off this train in the next 10 minutes, he might not make it. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Someone must have obeyed, because a few seconds later, the train's brakes screeched, metal grinding against metal, and the entire car jerked forward. Passengers stumbled, cried out, clutched at seatbacks and handrails. But Julia didn't move. Her hand stayed on my wrist, her eyes locked on mine. "Stay with me," she said again, quieter this time. "What's your name? Can you tell me your name?" I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say Theodore Crane, 72 years old, former CEO, husband, father, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was stare up at her. My vision tunneling the edges of the world, folding in on themselves like a closing iris. If this is how it ends, I thought it won't be peaceful. It won't be gentle. It'll be messy. And it'll be Diana's fault. Julia's face swam in and out of focus. I heard her voice distant and muffled as if I were underwater. His pulse is erratic, breathing shallow. We need to get him to a clinic, any clinic, as soon as this train stops. The train was slowing now. The screech of the brakes louder, harsher, until finally, with one last shuddering jolt, it stopped. I felt hands on my shoulders, my legs lifting me. The world tilted again, and I was being carried, half-dragged, half-carried down the narrow aisle through the doors, out into the cold autumn air. The platform was small, deserted, just a single bench, and a faded sign that read, "Millbrook Station," in peeling white letters. Julia was beside me, her hand still on my wrist, her voice a steady anchor in the chaos. "Stay with me," she kept saying. "Just a little longer. Stay with me." I tried. God, I tried. But the world was fading fast, dissolving into a swirl of light and shadow, and the last thing I heard before the darkness swallowed me whole was Julia's voice, sharp and certain, cutting through the fog. "This isn't a heart attack. This is something else." She was right, but she didn't know just how dark that something else really was. 3 hours after I collapsed on the train, I woke in a room that smelled of disinfectant and old paper. It wasn't a hospital. The space was too small, just a narrow bed with white sheets, a wooden chair near the window, and a metal cabinet in the corner marked with a faded red cross. The pale yellow walls were chipped with age. Through the narrow window, I saw a quiet street, worn storefronts, and a single traffic light swaying gently in the breeze. Millbrook. I remembered the sign on the platform. A town so small it barely existed on most maps. Somewhere quieter, somewhere safer for now. When I tried to sit up, my body resisted. My muscles felt heavy, useless, and a dull ache pulsed behind my eyes. Still, my thoughts were clear, clearer than they had been in hours. "Easy," the voice came from the doorway. I turned my head slowly and saw her. Julia. She stood just inside the room, arms crossed, auburn hair pulled into the same efficient ponytail. Her sweater was gone, replaced by a white lab coat that didn't quite fit sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her dark eyes studied me with calm precision. "How are you feeling?" she asked, stepping closer. I swallowed, like I got hit by a truck. Her lips twitched. Not a smile, but close. "That's good. Means you're coherent." She pulled the chair beside the bed and sat leaning forward. For a moment, she simply watched me, questions stacking silently behind her eyes. "What happened to me?" I asked, though I already knew. She chose her words carefully. "You showed symptoms consistent with chemical exposure. Dilated pupils, irregular heart rate, cold sweats, loss of motor control. It wasn't a heart attack or a stroke. Poison, then." I kept my face neutral while my thoughts raced. Diana had been careful. Whatever she slipped into the coffee was nearly tasteless, slow, quiet. Deadly if Julia hadn't noticed. "I contacted Dr. Nathan Wells," Julia continued. "Your family physician." Of course. Nathan had been my doctor for decades. "What did he say?" "That you're remarkably healthy for 72. No heart issues. No allergies, nothing that explains this." Her gaze sharpened, which means this wasn't accidental. I looked out the window. A small bird hopped along the sidewalk below. The late afternoon light painted the street gold, peaceful and deceptive. Maybe I mixed up my pills, I said lightly. Age does that. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her tightened jaw. But she didn't press. Mr. Crane, she said quietly, if someone did this to you, you should contact the police. And your family. Tell them my daughter-in-law tried to kill me with no proof. I'd sound delusional. And Diana would know I suspected her. No, I said, no police, no family. Her brow furrowed. Why? Because I need time, I said. Time to think. If I go home or tell anyone, things will only get worse. She studied me, weighing the risk. Finally, she sighed. This is a terrible idea. I know. You could be in serious danger. I know. I reached for my jacket and pulled out my wallet. I counted $500 bills and held them out. For your help, I said. And your silence. Her eyes flicked to the money, then back to me. I don't want this. I know, but please take it. After a long pause, she accepted it, folding the bills into her pocket. I'm going to regret this, she muttered. Probably. She stood and placed a card on the bedside table. Dr. Julia Bennett, Emergency Medicine, Boston General Hospital. A phone number was handwritten on the back. If you need anything, she said, call me. Anytime. Thank you, I said. For everything. She hesitated, then left her footsteps fading down the hall. Once I was sure she was gone, I swung my legs over the bed. Pain flared, but I could move. I could think, and I could plan. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the name I needed. Vincent Miller. Vince, my oldest friend. The smartest man I knew. The only one I trusted. I called. It rang. Then went to voicemail. I hung up without speaking. Later, I crossed to the window. The sun was sinking shadows stretching across the street. Somewhere out there, Diana was probably celebrating, thinking I was dead. She was wrong. For the first time in years, I felt something sharp and steady rise in my chest. Anger, not fear, not grief, just focus. Diana wanted me erased so she could claim everything I built. She would get her wish. I would disappear, but I would come back. Vincent picked up on the third ring. Theo. His voice was warm, familiar, tinged with surprise. I thought you were on a train to... I need your help. I cut him off, my voice steadier than I felt. And I need you to keep this quiet. There was a pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the way they always did when he was processing something unexpected. Vincent Miller had built his company by turning the impossible into the inevitable. He didn't panic. He calculated. What happened? He asked, his tone shifting sharper, more focused. I leaned back against the thin headboard of the motel bed and closed my eyes. The room was small, cramped with peeling wallpaper and a single window that looked out onto a dimly lit street. I'd paid cash for it 2 nights. No questions asked. The television in the room next door droned on muffled voices bleeding through the wall. Outside, a street lamp flickered, casting weak yellow light through the cheap curtains. I told him everything. The coffee, the train, the numbness spreading through my body like ice water. Julia Bennett, the stranger who'd saved my life, the clinic in Millbrook, and Diana. Jesus, Theo. Vincent breathed when I was done. His voice was tight, almost shaking. Are you sure? Are you sure it was her? I'm sure. But why would she? Yeah, money. I said flatly. She's in debt. Ethan's in debt. And I'm worth more gone than I am here. Vincent swore under his breath, a string of curses I hadn't heard from him in years. He was angry on my behalf, and part of me appreciated it. But anger wouldn't solve this. Anger was just noise. Where are you now? He asked. Shop Millbrook, a motel off Route 9. I'm not coming home, Vince. Another pause. Longer this time. What are you planning to do? I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. A water stain spread across the plaster like a map of some forgotten country. Justice, I said. Not revenge, justice. Theo, she tried to make me disappear, Vince. And if I just go home, if I just tell the police, she'll deny it. She'll say I'm confused, that I'm old, that I'm imagining things. And maybe they'll believe her. Maybe they won't. But either way, she'll know I'm onto her. And she'll try again. So what's the alternative? I sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. My body still ached, but it was a distant ache now, something I could push through. I disappear, I said. For real. Let her think she succeeded. Let her think I'm gone. Vincent was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. And then what? He asked. And then I make her life hell. He laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. You're serious. Completely serious. Theo, that's... I know what it sounds like, I interrupted. But I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to help me. Can you do that? Another pause. And then slowly Vincent said, Yeah, I can do that. I exhaled, feeling a knot in my chest, loosen just slightly. When can you get here? I asked. 3 hours. Maybe less if I push it. Good. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not your wife, not your assistant. No one. Got it. He hesitated. Theo, you said Diana has access to your house. She does. Ethan gave her the security codes after Angela passed. She's been helping him manage things. Your smart home system, the one we installed 5 years ago. She has control over that too. Yeah. Why? I heard the shift in Vincent's voice, the subtle change from concern to calculation. This was the Vincent I remembered. The kid who'd walked into my office 20 years ago with a head full of ideas and no clue how to turn them into reality. I'd taken a chance on him, invested in his first startup, helped him find his footing. And now he was one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs on the East Coast. If she thinks you're gone, Vincent said slowly, she's going to try to access your accounts, your assets, and she'll use your house as a base of operations. She'll feel safe there. That's what I'm counting on. Theo, your house is basically one giant computer. Lights, cameras, speakers, thermostats, everything's connected. And if she thinks you're gone, she won't be watching for anyone else in the system. I felt a smile tug at the corner of my mouth. The first smile since this morning. It wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't a kind smile. But it was a smile nonetheless. You're saying you can get in, I said. I'm saying I built the back end for that system. I know every line of code, every access point, every vulnerability. If you want to haunt her, Theo, I can make that happen. I thought about Diana, about the way she'd handed me that coffee this morning, her smile bright and false, about the way she'd stood on the platform and waved as the train pulled away, probably counting down the minutes until she could start claiming my assets. She wanted me gone. She was going to get her wish, just not the way she expected. 3 hours, I said. Pack light, we have work to do. I'll be there, Vincent said, and then quieter. Theo, I'm glad you're still here. I almost laughed. Me too, Vince, me too. I ended the call and set the phone down on the nightstand. The room was silent except for the muffled voices from the television next door and the faint hum of traffic outside. I stood and walked to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see my reflection in the dark glass. An old man stared back at me, 72 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. Theodore Crane, husband, father, CEO. The man Diana thought she knew. But that man was about to disappear, and what came back would be something else entirely. By midnight, I'd erased every trace of Theodore Crane, at least every trace Diana could follow. In the digital age, vanishing is simple. Staying hidden is the hard part. Vincent picked me up just after 10, his silver sedan pulling into the motel lot with its headlights off. I was waiting by the window bag already packed. We didn't talk much on the drive. The further we got from Riverside, the easier it was to breathe. The cabin was small, tucked into pine trees about 50 miles west of the city. Vincent had rented it under a fake name paid cash. One bedroom, a kitchenette, a fireplace that smelled of old smoke. Off the grid. "This'll work," I said, setting my bag down. Vincent was already at the wooden table pulling out his laptop. The screen lit up, casting pale blue light across his face. "Let me get us connected," he said, fingers flying across the keyboard. I built a fire while he worked. The flames caught quickly, crackling and spitting warmth into the cold room. Behind me, Vincent muttered something half frustration, half satisfaction. "What is it?" I asked. "I'm in." He leaned back. "Backdoor access. Installed it 2 years ago when we upgraded your system. Diana doesn't know it's there." I walked over and looked at the screen. A grid of small windows showed live feeds from cameras inside my house. Living room, kitchen, hallway, master bedroom, grainy black and white, but clear enough. "Can you control everything from here?" I asked. Lights, locks, thermostats, speakers, everything. She thinks she's in control. She's not. We are. I stared at the feeds, my mind racing. 3 phases. First, let Diana realize I was missing. Let her panic. Second, start the haunting lights, flickering doors, opening strange sounds. Make her question herself. Third, gather evidence. Watch, listen. Wait for her to slip up. "She'll notice you're gone soon," Vincent said. "What happens when she calls the police?" "Let her. I'm a 72-year-old man who went for a train ride and never came home. They'll assume I wandered off, got confused. By the time they start looking, I'll be long gone. And Dr. Bennett. Julia won't say anything unless they ask the right questions." Vincent sighed. "For the record, this is illegal surveillance, wiretapping. We could both end up in serious trouble." "I know. And you're okay with that?" I thought about Diana handing me that coffee, about her smile as the train pulled away. "I've always wanted to attend my own funeral," I said, "though I'd prefer to do it remotely." Vincent laughed despite himself. "You're insane." "Maybe." I leaned forward. "Pull up the living room, full screen." He clicked, and the living room feed expanded. Diana was there. She sat on my couch, legs crossed, wine glass in hand. She looked relaxed, casual, and sitting across from her was a man I didn't recognize. Younger than me, maybe 40, lean build, sharp features, tailored suit. They were talking, gesturing, laughing, my hands curled into fists. "Who the hell is that?" I muttered. Vincent captured a still image, ran facial recognition. The software churned, then spit out a result. "Art Garrett Sullivan." Vincent read, "Attorney, estate law and probate, based in Riverside." He scrolled. Few complaints filed against him. Shady practices, conflicts of interest, nothing that stuck. I stared at the screen. An estate lawyer, of course. She's been planning this for weeks," I said quietly. "Maybe months." Vincent looked at me. "What do you want to do?" Pull up her phone records, emails, bank statements, everything. Theo, "Do it, Vince." He hesitated, then nodded. Windows opened across the screen. Call logs, text messages, bank transactions, and there it was. A call to my insurance company. Yesterday, 3:15 in the afternoon, right around when I would have been on the train. Vincent clicked the details. She asked about the claims process, specifically what happens when the insured goes missing. I stared at the screen, chest tight. "She knew," I said. "She knew exactly what she was doing." Vincent didn't say anything. I stood and crossed to the window. The forest outside was dark, silent, endless. Somewhere out there, Diana was sitting in my house, drinking my wine, planning how to spend my money. Let her think she succeeded. I said, my voice cold. Let her celebrate. Let her plan her next move. And then I turn back my reflection sharp in the darkened glass, and then we make her wish she never tried. Diana discovered I was missing exactly 36 hours after she handed me that coffee. I watched her performance through Vincent's laptop screen, and it was quite a performance. We'd been monitoring the house since dawn, waiting for her to realize I wasn't coming home. She'd been busy the day before phone calls, online shopping, a long lunch with someone whose face we couldn't see on the porch camera. She hadn't seemed worried. She hadn't seemed concerned. She'd seemed patient. But by late afternoon on the second day, something shifted. Vincent and I sat side by side at the cabin's small table, the laptop between us. The living room camera showed Diana pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. She was calling someone, no answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Then she called my phone. We heard it ring through the house's audio system, 3 short bursts, before going to voicemail. My phone was still sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it 2 days ago, deliberately. Diana walked over, picked it up, stared at it. "She's looking for your calendar," Vincent muttered. "Trying to figure out where you went." I watched her swipe through the screen, her face tight with concentration. She checked my messages, my emails, my recent calls. Then she walked upstairs. Vincent switched cameras, following her through the hallway to my bedroom. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room, then crossed to the closet. She opened it, looked inside, checked the drawers. "She's looking for your will," I said quietly. "Does she know where it is?" "No. It's in a safe deposit box downtown. Only my lawyer has access." Diana closed the closet, frustrated. She stood in the middle of the bedroom, hands on her hips, thinking. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Vincent turned up the audio. "Ethan." Diana's voice was shaky, uncertain. "Honey, I don't know how to say this, but your father. He never arrived at your grandmother's town. I've been trying to reach him for 2 days, and he's not answering his phone." There was a pause. We could hear Ethan's voice on the other end, tinny, distant, but clear enough. "What do you mean he didn't arrive?" "I mean, he got on the train and he never showed up. I called your grandmother's neighbors, and they said he never came." "Ethan, I think something's wrong." Her voice cracked on the last word. Tears welled up in her eyes. She wiped them away, sniffling. I felt my jaw tighten. "It's an act," Vincent said. "I know, but part of me wasn't so sure." The tears looked real. Almost real. Ethan's voice rose, panicked. "Have you called the police?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. I didn't want to alarm anyone if maybe he just decided to stay somewhere else or—" "Diana, call the police, now. I'm getting on the next flight home." Okay, I will. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I should have called sooner." "It's not your fault. Just call them. I'll be there as soon as I can." She ended the call and stood there for a moment, staring at the phone. Then she took a deep breath, wiped her eyes again, and straightened her shoulders. I exhaled slowly. "He didn't know," I said. Vincent glanced at me. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. He's scared. He's worried. That wasn't an act." Vincent nodded, turning back to the screen. "At least there's that." Diana walked back downstairs, pulled out her phone again, and dialed. This time it was the police. "Hello, yes, I need to report a missing person. My father-in-law, Theodore Crane. He left for a trip 2 days ago and never arrived at his destination. He's 72 years old, and I'm very worried about him." She gave them all the details. The train, the station, the time. Her voice was calm, measured, exactly the right amount of concern without sounding hysterical. She was good. Very good. Thank you," she said at the end. "Yes, I'll be here, thank you so much." She ended the call and set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Then she stood there alone and smiled. Not a big smile, not a triumphant smile, just a small, satisfied curve of her lips. It lasted maybe 3 seconds before she wiped it away. Vincent and I said nothing. An hour later, a detective arrived. We watched through the doorbell camera as Diana opened the door, her face drawn and worried. The detective was a woman, mid-40s. Short, dark hair, sharp eyes. She introduced herself as Detective Lauren Beckett. Thank you for coming," Diana said, her voice trembling. "I'm so worried about him." "We're going to do everything we can to find him, Mrs. Crane." They went inside. Vincent switched to the living room camera. Diana sat on the couch, Detective Beckett across from her notebook open. They talked for 20 minutes. Diana answering questions, providing details, occasionally wiping her eyes. When the detective left, Diana closed the door, locked it, and stood there for a moment. Then she pulled out her phone and made one more call. "It's done," she said, her voice completely different now, flat, cold, businesslike. "He's gone. The police are looking, but they won't find anything." A pause. A man's voice on the other end, low, indistinct. "I know," Diana said. "Just give it time. 7 years and we can file for a declaration. But the insurance payout will start processing in 6 months if they don't find him." Vincent and I exchanged a look. "That's Garrett," I said. "I know." Diana laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Relax. Everything's fine. The old man's out of the picture and no one suspects a thing." She ended the call and walked upstairs. Vincent turned to me. "Detective Lauren Beckett is very good at her job. She's thorough." I nodded slowly. "Then we'll have to be better." I looked back at the screen at Diana's face frozen in the frame. The performance was over. The real Diana had finally appeared, cold, calculating, and absolutely completely confident she'd gotten away with it. 3 days after I went missing, Diana found the first gift I'd left for her. A single white rose on the kitchen counter, Angela's favorite flower. I watched her discover it through Vincent's laptop screen, the morning sun streaming through the windows, casting long golden shadows across the empty house. She'd been alone for most of the week. Ethan had flown back from his business trip, spent 2 days helping with the police investigation, then returned to work. He was worried, genuinely worried, but he had meetings, deadlines, responsibilities. Diana had told him to go. She'd said she could handle things. She couldn't. Vincent and I had been planning this moment for 2 days. The rose was symbolic, deliberate. Angela had loved white roses. I'd bought them for her every week for 30 years until the end. Diana knew that. She'd seen the flowers in our bedroom on the dining table in Angela's hospital room during those final weeks. She knew what they meant. And now one had appeared in her kitchen on the counter, where she made her morning coffee, as if someone had placed it there while she slept. "Maggie came through," Vincent said quietly beside me. I nodded. Maggie O'Brien had been our housekeeper for 3 decades. She'd been there when Ethan was born. She'd been there when Angela got sick. She'd been there when I needed someone I could trust. And I'd sent her an encrypted message 2 days ago with a simple request. Place a white rose on the kitchen counter. 6 a.m. Tell no one. Maggie hadn't asked questions. She never did. She just trusted me. The camera showed Diana walking into the kitchen at 7 o'clock, still in her bathrobe, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She stopped mid-step when she saw the rose. For a long moment she just stared at it. Then she crossed the room, slowly picked it up, turned it over in her hands. Her face was pale, confused. She looked around the kitchen, then walked to the back door. Locked. She checked the windows. Locked. She checked the front door. Also locked. She stood in the middle of the kitchen holding the rose, and I could see her trying to make sense of it. Vincent leaned forward. "She's scared." "Good," I said. Diana pulled out her phone and made a call. The audio system picked it up immediately. "Maggie." Her voice was tight, controlled. Did you bring something to the house this morning? A flower?" There was a pause. Maggie's voice came through calm and slightly confused. "Bring what Mrs. Crane—" "A rose. A white rose. It's on the kitchen counter." "I haven't been to the house yet, ma'am. I'm not scheduled until tomorrow." Diana's hand tightened around the phone. "You're sure? Quite sure. Is everything all right?" Yes, I'm fine. Thank you, Maggie." She ended the call and stood there staring at the rose again. Then she made another call. Orit. Her voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. There's a rose, a white rose, in the kitchen. The kind Theodore used to buy for Angela, a man's voice on the other end, low, reassuring. Maybe Ethan brought it. He's at work, and he doesn't even know about the roses. He was too young to remember. Then maybe, all the doors are locked, Garrett, all the windows. No one's been in this house except me. There was a pause. You're probably just tired. You haven't been sleeping. Maybe you brought it in yourself and forgot. I didn't. Diana, I didn't. Another pause. Okay, just calm down. It's probably nothing. Maybe the housekeeper came by earlier than she remembered. She said she didn't. People forget things. It's fine. Just throw it away and try to relax. Diana ended the call and stood there for a moment longer. Then she crossed to the trash can, lifted the lid, and dropped the rose inside. But her hand was shaking. I allowed myself a small smile. Vincent turned to me, his expression unreadable. You're enjoying this. I didn't deny it. She wanted me gone, I said quietly. She wanted me out of the picture so she could take everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for. She wanted me to disappear. I looked at the screen at Diana standing alone in the kitchen, hands gripping the edge of the counter. Now she gets to feel what it's like to be haunted. Vincent said nothing. He just turned back to the laptop and started typing. What are you doing? I asked. Phase 2, he said. The rose was a good start. But if we want her to really lose sleep, we need to step it up. I leaned back in my chair, watching Diana on the screen. She was still standing at the counter, staring at the trash can. What did you have in mind? Vincent smiled, not a kind smile, but a sharp, calculated one. Wait and see. That night, Diana lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The bedroom camera showed her tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The house was silent around her. Ethan was still at work, staying late at the office. She was alone. At 11:47 p.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She picked it up, squinting at the screen. A text message from an unknown number. 5 words. Do you like the flowers? I watched her sit up, her face pale in the dim light. She stared at the message, her breath coming faster. Then she looked around the room, as if expecting someone to be there. No one was. Just me, watching. 1 rose down, many more to come. Diana heard my voice for the first time at 2 in the morning. Or rather, she heard what she thought was my voice, a whisper in the darkness of her bedroom, soft and low, barely more than a breath. Diana, 1 week after I went missing, Diana was still living in my house in the bedroom she shared with Ethan, just down the hall from the master bedroom where Angela and I had slept for 30 years. Ethan had flown back for 2 days after I disappeared, then returned to his business trip. Meetings, deadlines, responsibilities. Diana had told him to go. She'd said she could handle things, and she wasn't alone. Garrett had moved into the guest room downstairs 3 days ago, right after the White Rose incident. For protection, Diana had claimed. Just until things settled down, but I knew better. They were in this together. And now they were both under my roof. Perfect. I watched Diana wake up through the infrared camera Vincent had tapped into. The bedroom, her bedroom, the one she shared with my son, was dark shadows pooling in the corners, moonlight slicing through the gap in the curtains. She'd been lying on her side, 1 arm tucked under the pillow, her breathing slow and steady, until the voice. Her eyes snapped open. She didn't move at first, just lay there frozen, staring into the darkness. I could see her chest rising and falling faster, her breath quickening. Perfect, Vincent muttered beside me, his fingers hovering over the laptop keyboard. She's awake. The smart speaker on the nightstand was off, or at least it looked off. Vincent had hacked into the system days ago, bypassing the physical controls. He could turn it on, turn it off, Make it speak all without Diana ever knowing. Technology, it turned out, could be a ghost's best friend. And I was getting very good at being a ghost. Diana sat up slowly, her eyes locked on the speaker. She reached over and tapped it. Nothing. No light. No response. She picked it up, turned it over in her hands, then set it back down. She thinks she was dreaming, Vincent said. Give her a minute, I replied. Diana lay back down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. She closed her eyes, exhaled slowly, trying to calm herself. That's when Vincent hit the button again. I know what you did. The voice was mine or close enough. Vincent had pulled clips from old voicemails I'd left for Ethan, spliced them together, and run them through a program that made the words sound hollow, distant, like they were coming from somewhere far away. Diana screamed. Not a long scream. Just a sharp, breathless gasp that turned into a cry. She bolted upright, scrambling backward until her back hit the headboard. Her hand flew to her chest, clutching at the fabric of her nightgown. My Jesus Christ! She whispered, her voice shaking. She stared at the speaker. Then she grabbed it, threw it across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud and clattered to the floor. For a moment the room was silent. Then footsteps pounded up the stairs from the guest room below. The bedroom door flew open, and Garrett burst in, hair disheveled, eyes wide. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, clearly woken from sleep. Diana. He crossed the room in 3 strides, sitting down on the edge of the bed. What happened? Are you okay? Diana was shaking. Her hands gripped the blanket so tightly her knuckles were white. I heard... She stopped, swallowed hard. I heard his voice. Garrett frowned. Whose voice? Theodore's. Garrett glanced around the room, then back at her. Diana, you're exhausted. You haven't been sleeping. The stress from everything, I'm not imagining it. Her voice rose sharp and desperate. I heard him. Twice. He said my name. He said she couldn't finish. Garrett stood, walked over to where the speaker had landed and picked it up. He turned it over, pressed the button. Nothing happened. It's off, he said gently. It's been off. Look. I know what I heard. Diana, what if he's... She stopped, her eyes wide. What if he's still here somehow? What if he never left? Garrett set the speaker down on the dresser and crossed back to her. He sat down again, reaching for her hand. That's not possible, he said quietly. People don't come back from... He didn't finish the sentence. Diana stared at him. From where, Garrett? We don't even know if he's... She couldn't say it either. I leaned closer to the laptop screen, watching them. Garrett's jaw was tight. Diana's face was pale, her eyes hollow from lack of sleep. And I felt... something. Not guilt, not exactly. But maybe something close to it. This house had been mine. Mine and Angela's. We'd raised Ethan here. We'd celebrated birthdays here, Christmases, anniversaries. Angela had planted roses in the garden. I'd built the deck out back. And now Diana was here sleeping in a bedroom down the hall from ours, planning to take everything. The guilt, if that's what it was, didn't last long. Vincent zoomed the camera in on the smart speaker lying on the dresser. He tapped a key, and the tiny LED on the front of the device blinked once so fast Diana didn't notice. But I did. Mission accomplished. Come on, Garrett was saying, standing up and holding out his hand. You're not staying in here tonight. Come downstairs. Diana hesitated, then nodded. She let him pull her to her feet, and they walked out of the room together, leaving the door open behind them. I switched cameras, following them down the hallway, down the stairs, into the living room. Diana sank onto the couch, pulling a throw blanket around her shoulders. Garrett went into the kitchen, came back with a glass of water, handed it to her. Drink, he said. She did, her hands still shaking. Garrett sat down beside her, close but not touching. You need to rest. I can't, Diana whispered. Not up there, not anymore. Then stay here, I'll stay with you. Diana looked at him, and for a moment, Something passed between them. Something unspoken. Something I'd seen on the cameras before, but hadn't fully understood until now. He wasn't just her lawyer. He was her accomplice. Her partner. Her... whatever he was. I sat back in my chair at the cabin, the glow of the laptop screen casting shadows across my face. Diana refused to go back to her bedroom. She spent the rest of the night on the couch, every light in the house blazing with Garrett sitting beside her. Good. Let her be afraid. Let her wonder, because tomorrow night I'd give her something else to fear. Detective Lauren Beckett didn't believe in coincidences, and my disappearance, she told Diana 10 days later, had far too many of them. I watched the conversation through Vincent's laptop, the living room camera, giving me a clear view of all three. Diana sat perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. Garrett occupied the armchair by the window, legs crossed, posture relaxed. Lauren sat across from them, notebook balanced on her knee, pen ready. She was 44, sharp-eyed, with short dark hair already turning gray at the temples. Her posture was disciplined, attentive. I'd seen her kind before, career detectives who didn't just ask questions. They observed, and she was observing Diana closely. Mrs. Crane, Lauren began calmly. Let's go over the last time you saw your father-in-law. Walk me through that morning. Diana nodded and swallowed. She'd applied makeup carefully, foundation, to hide sleepless nights, lipstick for color, but her hands trembled despite the effort to steady them. I drove him to the train station, Diana said. Around 7:30. He wanted to visit his late wife's hometown. He went every year. Lauren wrote something down. How did he seem? Fine, Diana said softly. Quiet. Sad, maybe. He always got that way this time of year. Missing Angela, Lauren nodded. Did he mention any concerns? Health problems, fears? Diana hesitated. No, nothing unusual. He seemed tired, but he was 72. That's normal. And you bought him coffee? Yes. Diana's voice stayed even, but her pulse jumped visibly. There was a cafe near the platform. He liked his coffee black. Lauren noted it. Then what happened? I walked him to the train. We said goodbye. He boarded. That was the last time I saw him. Lauren looked up. Did you notice anything strange, anyone watching him? No, Diana said quickly. What about his phone? It's here, Diana said, glancing toward the kitchen. He left it behind. Lauren paused. He left his phone. Yes. That's unusual, Lauren said gently. Especially for someone traveling alone. Diana shifted. He was forgetful sometimes. Mrs. Crane, Lauren said your father-in-law ran a telecommunications company for 30 years. He wasn't careless with technology. Silence settled over the room. Diana's fingers clenched. Garrett leaned forward. Detective Diana's under enormous stress. I don't think it's fair to imply. Lauren turned to him. I'm sorry, and you are. Garrett Sullivan, family friend. Diana's attorney. Lauren wrote it down. You're staying here. Temporarily, Garrett said. Ethan asked me to support her while he's away. I see. Lauren made another note. Then she returned her attention to Diana. I need to ask about Theodore's finances. Diana blinked. His finances. Yes. Did he have a will? Diana hesitated. Garrett started to answer, but Lauren raised a hand. Mrs. Crane. Yes, Diana said. He had a will. And you're familiar with it. Not the details. Ethan would handle that. But you know you stand to inherit. I suppose, Diana said faintly. What about life insurance? Lauren asked. Did Theodore have a policy? Garrett stood abruptly. Detective, I fail to see the relevance. Everything is relevant, Lauren replied calmly. Especially money. I'm not suggesting anything, she added. I'm investigating. She closed her notebook and stood. If you remember anything that might help, call me. Anytime. She handed Diana her card. Diana accepted it with shaking fingers. Lauren paused at the door. One more thing. Has anything unusual happened in the house since Theodore disappeared? Diana's face drained of color. Garrett answered quickly. No. Why? Lauren studied Diana. Just curious. Grief sometimes creates strange perceptions. She smiled politely and left. As soon as the door closed, Diana collapsed back against the couch. She knows, Diana whispered. She knows something's wrong. Garrett knelt beside her. She knows nothing. She's probing. She asked about the will. That's routine. What if she finds out? She won't, Garrett said firmly. There's nothing to find. I leaned back at the cabin watching. Lauren Beckett was sharp. She'd noticed the trembling hands, the evasive answers, Garrett's interruptions. She suspected something. The question was how much, and how long before she uncovered the rest. I'd have to move carefully. One mistake and everything would unravel. 2 weeks after I went missing, Vincent found the security footage from Riverside Station. What we saw on that grainy black and white recording changed everything and confirmed my worst fears. It was late when he found it. We'd been at the cabin for days, working through system after system, trying to piece together evidence, and Vincent had been focused on the train station's security network for hours, his face illuminated by the glow of his laptop screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. The coffee in his mug had gone cold. Mine too. Neither of us had moved in over an hour. Got it, Vincent said finally, his voice tight with exhaustion. Backdoor access. The station's security system is outdated, easy to breach if you know where to look. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. Can you pull footage from 2 weeks ago? Give me a few minutes. He worked in silence, pulling up files, filtering through timestamps. The cabin was dark around us, the only light coming from the laptop and the dying embers in the fireplace. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. 3 hours later, Vincent found us. There, he said, freezing the playback. Platform 7, 7:32 a.m. I stared at the screen. The footage was grainy shot from a camera mounted high on a pillar near the coffee shop. But it was clear enough. There I was, standing near the platform, jacket over my arm, looking tired. And there was Diana walking toward the cafe counter. Vincent played the footage forward. Diana ordered 2 coffees. The barista handed them over in paper cups. Diana paid, thanked her, then turned away from the counter. And that's when it happened. She set both cups down on a nearby counter just for a moment. Her back was to the camera. Her hand slipped into her purse. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Her hand came out holding something small, a vial maybe, or a bottle. She unscrewed the cap with one hand, tipped it over one of the cups. A clear liquid dripped in. Then she stirred it with a straw, capped the vial, slipped it back into her purse, and picked up both cups. When she turned around, she was smiling. That bright, easy smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Vincent paused the footage. I sat back in my chair, my hands clenched into fists. I'd suspected it. I'd known on some level that she'd done this. But seeing it, watching her calmly, methodically add something to my coffee, then smile as if nothing had happened, it hit me like a punch to the gut. She smiled, I said quietly, my voice rough. She handed me that cup and she smiled, like it was just a normal Tuesday morning. Like she wasn't about to... I couldn't finish the sentence. Vincent didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his expression grim. I forced myself to take a slow breath. Play it again. He did. I watched Diana's hand slip into her purse. Watched the vial come out. Watched the liquid drip into the cup, just a few drops barely visible. 3 seconds. That's all it took to try to erase a life. This is it, Vincent said, his voice low. This is the evidence we need. We have proof, concrete proof. We can go to the police. I shook my head. Not yet, Vincent frowned. Theo, this proves she tried to harm me, I said. But we need more than that. We need to know why. We need to know who helped her and how deep this really goes. We already know Garrett's involved. Do we? We've seen him on the cameras. We've heard Diana talk to him on the phone. But we don't have proof that he was part of the plan from the beginning. We don't have proof of motive. Vincent leaned back, running a hand through his hair. So what do you want to do? I looked at the screen at Diana's frozen smile. Yeah, we keep watching, I said. We keep gathering evidence, and we push her. We make her think she's losing control. We make her desperate enough to make mistakes. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "This footage was obtained illegally, Theo. If we take this to the police, it might not hold up in court. I know. And if they find out we've been surveilling Diana, we could both end up in serious trouble." "I know that too." Vincent sighed. "You're playing a dangerous game. I'm aware." He turned back to the laptop, his jaw tight. "There's something else I found." He opened a new window, a spreadsheet filled with phone numbers, dates, times. "I pulled Diana's phone records for the last 6 months," Vincent said. "She's been calling one number almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day." He highlighted a row. I leaned in, squinting at the screen. The number was listed next to a name, Garrett Sullivan. 6 months, Vincent said. "They've been in contact for 6 months. Long before you went missing." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. 6 months. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This wasn't panic or desperation. This was planned. Carefully, methodically, for months. Vincent froze the security footage on Diana's face, that smile, that calm, easy smile. Garrett Sullivan," I said quietly. "Attorney," Vincent nodded. "Estate law, probate." He specializes in helping people navigate inheritance wills, life insurance claims. Of course he did. I sat back, the pieces falling into place. Diana hadn't just wanted me gone. She'd been planning it for months. With Garrett's help, with his legal expertise, with his knowledge of how to make someone disappear and how to profit from it. "We need to know how much he stands to gain," I said. "We need to know if he's just advising her or if he's getting a cut." 3 weeks after I went missing, I decided it was time to escalate the haunting. Phase 2 began on a Tuesday night, when Diana woke up to find every light in the house blazing even though she'd turned them all off before going to bed. I watched it happen through Vincent's laptop screen, the night vision cameras, giving me a perfect view of her panic. It was 3 in the morning. Diana had been asleep for less than 2 hours, restless, tossing, turning. The stress was wearing her down. Good. Vincent sat beside me at the cabin, his fingers hovering over the smart home app on his tablet. One tap, and every light in the house flicked on simultaneously. Diana bolted upright in bed, her eyes wide. She sat there for a moment, staring at the ceiling light above her, then at the hallway glowing outside her door. Then she threw off the blanket and got up, moving quickly through the house, checking every room. Living room lights on, kitchen lights on, hallway lights on, master bedroom lights on. No one was there. No intruders. No explanation. She stood in the middle of the living room, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Then she went through the house again, turning off every light one by one. By the time she got back to her bedroom, her hands were trembling. She climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and closed her eyes. Vincent waited exactly 10 minutes. Then he tapped the screen again. Every light in the house turned on. Diana sat up with a choked gasp, her face pale. She didn't get up this time. She just sat there staring at the doorway, her chest rising and falling too fast. "That's enough for tonight," I said quietly. Vincent powered down the lights one by one, leaving only the hallway lamp on, just enough so Diana wouldn't be in complete darkness. She didn't go back to sleep. The second night we escalated. Diana had spent the day on edge, jumping at every sound. Garrett had stayed home with her. He'd stopped going to his own place days ago, sleeping on the couch downstairs, or in the guest room when Diana asked him to stay close. That night, they were both in the living room, Diana curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, Garrett sitting beside her, scrolling through his phone. At 2:47 a.m., Vincent triggered the master bedroom door. The sound was loud, clear, a long, slow creak as the door swung open. Garrett's head snapped up. Diana froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Garrett set his phone down. "Stay here." He got up and walked upstairs, his footsteps heavy on the old wooden stairs. I switched cameras, watching him reach the master bedroom. The door was wide open, swaying slightly. He stepped inside, looked around. Nothing. No one. He closed the door firmly, tested the latch, locked it. Then he went back downstairs. It was just the wind, he told Diana. The latch is old. It probably didn't catch properly. Diana didn't look convinced, but she nodded. 5 minutes later, Vincent triggered the door again. Creak! Diana's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Garrett stared at the ceiling, his jaw tight. Okay, he said quietly. That's not the wind. He went upstairs again. This time I watched him check the door, the lock, the hinges. He even checked the windows. Everything was closed. Everything was locked. He came back downstairs, and I could see the doubt creeping into his face. Maybe we should leave, Diana whispered. Just for a few nights. We can go to your place. Garrett hesitated. Then he nodded. Yeah. Okay. Pack a bag. But before they could move, Vincent triggered the thermostat. The third night was the coldest. Diana and Garrett had decided to stay, partly because Diana didn't want to admit she was scared, partly because Garrett had convinced himself there was a rational explanation. Faulty wiring, maybe. Old house settling. Something. At 3:15 a.m., Vincent dropped the temperature to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Diana woke up, shivering, her breath misting in the air. She sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders, and stared at the thermostat on the wall. 55 degrees Fahrenheit. She knew she'd set it to 72 before bed. She always did. She got up, walked over to the thermostat, and adjusted it back to 72. The heating system kicked on with a low hum. Then she climbed back into bed. 10 minutes later, Vincent dropped it to 50. Diana woke up again, this time gasping from the cold. Her fingers were numb. Her breath came out in visible puffs. She looked at the thermostat. 50 degrees Fahrenheit. She started crying. Not loud, desperate sobs, just quiet, exhausted tears streaming down her face. She didn't even bother adjusting the thermostat this time. She just sat there, shaking her arms wrapped around herself. Garrett came upstairs, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and pulled her close. It's him, Diana whispered, her voice breaking. Theodore, he's here. He's doing this to me. Garrett held her tighter. He's gone, Diana. People who are gone don't control thermostats. Diana looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. Then who is doing this? Garrett didn't have an answer. I powered down the camera feed, my work for the night done. Vincent looked at me in the dim light of the cabin. She's breaking Theo. I nodded slowly. Good. You're pushing her close to the edge, but not over it. Not yet. I need her clear-headed enough to make mistakes. Vincent closed the tablet and leaned back. What's next? I thought about Diana sitting in my house, crying in Garrett's arms. I thought about the footage from the train station. I thought about the phone records showing months of planning, and I thought about my son. There's one more thing I need to do before the end game, I said. What's that? I looked at Vincent, my expression steady. I need to talk to my son. 4 weeks after I went missing, I did something I'd both feared and hoped for. I asked Vincent to arrange a meeting with my son. It was time for Ethan to know the truth. All of it. What I was about to do would either bring my son back to me or lose him forever. But I had to take that risk. The cafe was small, tucked away in a strip mall 30 miles outside Riverside. The kind of place no one would think to look for us. Vincent had chosen it carefully, dim lighting, quiet corners, jazz playing softly in the background. Only a handful of customers scattered throughout the room. I sat at a table in the back, nursing a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. My hands were shaking. I hadn't seen Ethan in 4 weeks. 4 weeks of watching him through cameras, listening to his voice on phone calls, seeing the worry in his face. 4 weeks of wondering if he'd believe me, if he'd forgive me, if he'd help me. Vincent sat 2 tables away, pretending to read a newspaper. He'd called Ethan an hour ago, claiming to be a friend of mine with urgent information. Ethan had agreed to come immediately. Now we waited. At 7:15, the door opened. Ethan walked in, scanning the room. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders tense. He was wearing a suit, probably coming straight from a business meeting. His eyes moved across the cafe, searching for whoever had called him. Then he saw me. He stopped. Just stopped mid-step, his body going completely still. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Hadon. The word came out as a whisper, barely audible over the jazz music. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might break through my ribs. "Hello, son?" For a moment, neither of us moved. We just stared at each other across the dim cafe, father and son separated by 4 weeks and a lifetime of lies. Then Ethan moved. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and threw his arms around me, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. I hugged him back, closing my eyes, feeling the weight of him, the solid reality of him. My son. My boy. "Oh my God!" Ethan said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Oh my God, Dad! We thought you were gone." Diana said. He pulled back suddenly, his hands still gripping my shoulders, his eyes searching my face. "What the hell is going on? Where have you been? Why?" His voice cracked. "Why didn't you call? Why didn't you tell us you were okay?" I put my hands on his arms, steadying him. "Sit down, Ethan, please. I need to tell you something." He looked at me for a long moment, his expression shifting from relief to confusion to something like anger. Then he sat down heavily in the chair across from me. I sat down too, folding my hands on the table. "What I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear," I said quietly. "But I need you to listen, all the way through. Can you do that?" Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. I took a deep breath, and I told him everything. The coffee at the train station. The strange taste I'd ignored. The train ride, the numbness spreading through my body. Dr. Julia Bennett saving my life at a small clinic in Millbrook. My decision to stay hidden, to investigate, to find out who had tried to harm me. And Diana. Ethan shook his head before I even finished. No, that's insane. Diana she couldn't. I looked at Vincent. He pulled out his tablet, opened a file, and slid it across the table to Ethan. "Watch this," I said quietly. Ethan looked down at the screen. The security footage from Riverside Station played in grainy black and white. Diana at the coffee counter. The 2 cups. Her hand slipping into her purse. 3 seconds. Ethan watched in silence, his face going pale. His hand resting on the table beside the tablet started to shake. When the video ended, he didn't move. He just stared at the screen, his breath coming shallow and fast. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh my God." "I'm sorry, son," I said. "I know this is—" I didn't know. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes red. "Dad, I swear to God I didn't know. I had no idea she—" "I know," I said. "I know you didn't. I've been watching the house, Ethan. I've seen you. I know you're innocent." Ethan put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I'd seen my son cry twice in his life. Once when he was 10 and his dog passed away. Once at Angela's funeral. This was the 3rd time. "She's my wife," he said, his voice breaking. "We've been married for 12 years. We have a life together. I thought we had a home." I reached across the table and put my hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, son. I know how hard this is. But I need your help now. Will you help me prove what she's done?" Ethan looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "What do you need me to do?" I glanced at Vincent, then back at Ethan. "I need you to go back to that house," I said. "I need you to act like nothing's changed. Don't let Diana know that you know. Don't let her see that anything's different. And then you help me finish this." Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "How?" I leaned forward. "Diana thinks the house is haunted. She thinks I'm haunting her, and she's not wrong. Vincent and I have been controlling the smart home systems remotely. But now with you inside the house, we can do more. We can push her harder. We can make her desperate enough to make mistakes. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that will give us the evidence we need to put her away for a very long time." Ethan looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. I saw the boy I'd raised in his eyes, the man he'd become, and the pain of betrayal carved deep into his expression. Then slowly he nodded. "What do you need me to do?" And just like that, I had an ally inside the house. The ghost now had a living hand. 4 weeks and 2 days after I went missing, Diana made her boldest move yet. She filed a life insurance claim, $2,500,000. Vincent intercepted the paperwork before it entered the insurance company's database, and what we found completed the final piece of the puzzle. I had been expecting it. The moment Vincent told me about Diana's phone call weeks earlier, asking the insurance company about procedures when an insured person went missing, I knew this day would come. Still knowing it would happen and watching it unfold were two very different things. Seeing her actually submit the claim felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. "She's at Patricia Vaughn's office right now." Vincent set his laptop open on the cabin table. Morning sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the parking lot camera feed on the screen. Diana stepped out of her car, dressed entirely in black, appropriate attire for a grieving daughter-in-law. Even through the grainy footage, I could see the tension in her posture, the quick way she adjusted her purse strap. She wasn't grieving, she was waiting to collect. "Garrett's with her," Vincent added. Of course he was. Garrett Sullivan, estate attorney, and Diana's co-conspirator, would never miss the chance to oversee this moment. I leaned closer, watching them walk toward the building. "Patricia's solid," Vincent said. "We went to college together. She agreed to keep me informed unofficially. Patricia Vaughn had spent 30 years in the insurance industry. If anyone could sense a fraudulent claim, it was her." The scene inside Patricia's office unfolded through the audio feed. Vincent had given her a small recorder concealed in her jacket lapel. Diana's voice came through carefully controlled, measured to sound both sorrowful and composed. "Mrs. Vaughn, thank you for seeing us on such short notice," Diana said. "Theodore has been missing for over 4 weeks. The police have found nothing. I need closure." Patricia responded calmly. "Mrs. Crane, I understand. But legally, a declaration of death typically requires 7 years. Without a body or definitive proof. There are exceptions," Garrett interjected smoothly. "When circumstances strongly suggest the person could not have survived. Mr. Crane boarded a train while experiencing a serious medical episode. He never arrived. No hospital has records of treating him. Detective Beckett's investigation has yielded nothing." I listened as Garrett laid out his argument with precision, using absence itself as proof of my death. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia remained cautious. "I'll need to file a preliminary report with our investigations unit. This isn't something that can be rushed." "I'm not asking you to rush," Diana said quickly. "I just need access to the funds to continue searching, to hire private investigators." She let the implication linger. After they left, Patricia called Vincent immediately. "Something's wrong," she said. "She's far too eager." And Sullivan, he knew every loophole before I finished speaking. "Can you delay the claim?" Vincent asked. "I can initiate an investigation, but I can't deny it outright. Not with the framework he presented." "Send me everything," she submitted. "Already done." 10 minutes later, the documents appeared in Vincent's encrypted inbox. I watched him open them, page by page. Standard claim forms, Diana's signatures, selected medical records suggesting declining health. Then we reached the financial disclosures. Diana's outstanding debts totaled $265,000. I stared at the number. Vincent cross-referenced the sources: maxed-out credit cards, personal loans from obscure lenders, high-interest institutions, and buried deep in the paperwork references to private lending arrangements. "That's underground money," Vincent said quietly. "The kind that doesn't wait patiently for repayment." Diana wasn't just greedy, she was desperate. Then came the final revelation. The beneficiary designations. Ethan was listed as primary beneficiary, but under secondary beneficiaries allocated 30% was Garrett Sullivan. 30% of $2.5 million. $750,000. We sat in silence, absorbing it. She planned to split it, Vincent said. Diana keeps $1.75 million. Garrett takes $750,000. She clears her debts and disappears. He walks away wealthy. I leaned back, the weight settling over me. For weeks we'd worked with theories and surveillance. This was different. This was motive documented and signed. We have enough now, Vincent said. Coffee tampering footage, insurance inquiries, a claim filed early, financial motive. We can go to Beckett immediately. I wanted to watch Diana's lies unravel, but I shook my head. Not yet. Vincent frowned. Why not? Because we don't have her confession, I said. A good defense attorney will argue grief coincidence, unclear footage. Garrett's percentage could be framed as legal compensation. Juries believe weak stories. Vincent hesitated. So what do you want? I want her to admit it, I said. I want her to know she's caught. I want her words. He studied me, then nodded slowly. So what's the plan? I looked at Diana's signature on the form. $2.5 million. That was my worth to her. We let her think she's won, I said. We let the claim proceed just enough. We make her believe she's about to be very rich. I paused. And then I come back from the dead. The night before I came back from the dead, I gave Diana one final gift, one last push toward the edge. This time there were no flickering lights, no phantom footsteps, no whispers in the dark. This time I let her hear her own words. Her own guilt played back to her in the silence. 5 weeks had passed since I vanished, and Diana believed she had won. The insurance claim was already processing. Detective Beckett's investigation had slowed to a crawl. The house had been quiet for 3 days. I'd made sure of that, letting Diana believe the strange incidents were over, that maybe stress and guilt had twisted her imagination. She was wrong. Are you sure about this? Vincent asked, his fingers hovering above the keyboard. The cabin was dark, except for the glow of his monitors, each showing a live camera feed from my house. Diana and Garrett were asleep in the master bedroom. My bedroom. The one I'd shared with Angela. That detail still burned. I'm sure I said, tomorrow the ghost becomes real. But tonight I want her to know someone is watching. Someone who knows everything. Vincent nodded slowly. Once we do this, there's no turning back. She'll know the system's compromised. She might run. She won't, I said, leaning closer to the screen. She's too close to the money. And where would she go? We have the recordings, the footage, the insurance trail. She's trapped. She just doesn't realize it yet. At exactly 11 p.m., Vincent pressed enter. The television in the bedroom flickered on. Diana stirred, reaching for the remote, then froze when she saw the screen. White letters against a black background filled the display, I know the truth. She sat up slowly, covering her mouth. Garrett groaned beside her, confused. What the hell, he muttered, grabbing the remote and turning the TV off. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then the screen turned back on. Same message. That's impossible, Garrett said, pressing the button again. The TV stayed on. It's him, Diana whispered. It's Theodore. Diana, that's insane. He's... Don't say it, she snapped. Don't you dare! Vincent looked at me. I nodded. The screen went black. Silence hung in the room. Then audio filled the speakers, clear and unmistakable. Diana's voice. We need to make sure he doesn't survive the train ride. The coffee will. Garrett's voice followed. What if someone sees cameras? There won't be. Diana replied. I checked. He'll disappear. By the time anyone notices, we'll be free. Diana stumbled off the bed, hands clamped over her ears, but the recording continued. Their voices echoed through the room, every word damning, every sentence proof of intent. Turn it off, she screamed. Make it stop. Garrett yanked the power cord from the wall. The TV went dark. Then every speaker in the house came alive. This time the voice was mine. Diana, my recorded voice, said calmly, "You can't escape what you've done. I know everything. The coffee, the plan, the insurance, Garrett, the debts, all of it." Diana ran downstairs, Garrett close behind. My voice followed them from room to room as cameras tracked their panic. "You thought I was gone," the recording continued. "You thought you'd won. But some people don't stay buried." She collapsed in the living room, shaking, sobbing. Garrett tried to hold her, but she shoved him away. "We have to leave," he said. "Tonight. We can drive." Where, she whispered. "He's everywhere. He sees everything." "He's gone," Garrett shouted. "This is someone else. Maybe your son." "No," Diana said, looking at him with wild certainty. "He's here. Theodore is here." I leaned back, watching them unravel. Vincent stayed silent beside me. "Is this what you wanted?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer immediately. I'd spent weeks building toward this moment, layering fear and truth until guilt crushed her. "Yes," I said at last. "This is what I wanted." But beneath it, I felt exhaustion. Not regret, just weariness. I was 72. I'd lost my wife. I'd nearly lost my life. And tomorrow I would face the woman who tried to erase me. Vincent closed the laptop. Darkness filled the cabin. "Tomorrow," he said. I nodded. Tomorrow the ghost would become real. Tomorrow Diana and Garrett would face flesh and blood, evidence in hand. Tomorrow they would wish the ghost had stayed in the dark. I sent one text to Ethan tomorrow. 10 a.m. Be there. His reply came instantly. "I'll be there, Dad." I closed my eyes. One more night as a ghost. Tomorrow Theodore Crane comes home, and nothing will ever be the same. Before I reveal what happened when I walked through that door, tell me, what do you think Diana will do when she sees me alive? Will she break down? Or will she try to lie one more time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I need to know you're still with me on this. And a quick reminder, parts of what follows may be fictionalized for storytelling purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. I walked through the front door at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, 5 weeks after Diana thought she'd gotten rid of me for good. The look on her face, pure, absolute terror, was worth every sleepless night in that cabin. The last time I'd stood in this house, I was getting ready to board a train to visit my sister. I'd kissed my daughter-in-law on the cheek. I'd accepted the coffee she'd handed me with a smile. I'd trusted her. That was 5 weeks ago. That was a different Theodore Crane. The man who walked through the door today knew exactly what Diana was capable of. And I'd brought receipts. Diana was sitting on the living room couch when I entered, a coffee mug trembling in her hands. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, skin pale as paper. The haunting had done its work. She hadn't slept properly in days, maybe weeks. Garrett sat beside her, his hand on her knee, in what was probably meant to be a comforting gesture. He looked better than she did, but not by much. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose. They both looked like people who'd been living in fear. Good. I didn't say anything at first. I just closed the door behind me with a quiet click that seemed to echo through the house. The sound made Diana's head snap toward me. Our eyes met. The coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor, sending coffee and ceramic shards across the room. Neither of us moved to clean it up. You're gone," Diana whispered, her voice so faint I almost didn't hear it. "You're supposed to be gone." I walked further into the room, my footsteps measured and deliberate. I was wearing my gray suit, the same one I'd worn to Angela's funeral 4 years ago. Professional, respectable, the kind of outfit you wear when you're about to deliver a verdict. "I'm very much alive, Diana," I said calmly. "No thanks to you." Garrett stood up quickly, positioning himself slightly in front of Diana, protecting her. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was trying to shield her from the man they'd both tried to eliminate. "But Mr. Crane," Garrett said, his lawyer voice kicking in despite the shock on his face. We thought everyone thought you were missing. Where have you been? The police have been searching. Have they? I interrupted, setting my leather briefcase down on the coffee table. The sound of it hitting the wood made both of them flinch. That's interesting, because I haven't seen much evidence of an active search. What I have seen is Diana filing an insurance claim. $2.5 million. That's quite a lot of money to collect on someone who's only been missing 5 weeks, isn't it? Diana's face went even whiter if that was possible. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. How did you? Garrett started, then stopped himself. Too late. The question alone was an admission that the insurance claim existed. How did I know? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let's just say I've been keeping an eye on things. That's when Ethan walked out from the kitchen, a coffee mug in his hand. He'd been waiting there just as we'd planned. His presence was the final piece, the betrayal Diana wouldn't see coming. Diana's eyes went wide when she saw her husband. Ethan! She breathed, reaching out toward him. Thank God you're here. Your father, I don't understand what's happening. I know what you did, Diana. Ethan said, his voice flat and cold, in a way I'd never heard before. He stayed where he was, didn't move closer to her. Dad told me everything. Diana looked back and forth between us, her breathing getting faster, more panicked. Told you? What did he tell you? Ethan, baby, your father has been through something traumatic. He's not thinking clearly. Don't. Ethan cut her off. Don't lie to me anymore. I've seen the evidence. I know what you tried to do. Diana's composure finally cracked completely. She sank back onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Her shoulders shook. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I can explain, she said, her voice muffled by her hands. I was desperate. We were so far in debt, and I didn't mean I never wanted to actually what? I asked, my voice sharp. Eliminate me, collect my life insurance. Steal everything I spent my life building. Garrett stepped forward, and I could see him shifting into lawyer mode, trying to salvage whatever he could. Theodore, you don't have any proof of any of this. Whatever you think happened. Actually, Mr. Sullivan, I said, reaching for my briefcase, I have quite a lot of proof. I opened it slowly, deliberately. Inside were printed documents, USB drives, photographs, everything Vincent and I had gathered over the past 5 weeks. Every piece of evidence, every recorded conversation, every damning detail. I pulled out the first folder and placed it on the coffee table between us. The tab read, Riverside Station security footage. Should we start with the video from the train station? I asked, looking directly at Diana. Should you the one where you add something to my coffee? Or would you prefer to discuss the insurance claim first? The one where you list Garrett as a secondary beneficiary for 30% of the pay out $750,000 for his trouble. Garrett's face went pale. Diana's hands dropped from her face, and I could see the moment she realized just how much I knew. Just how completely her plan had unraveled. Or maybe... I continued, pulling out another folder. We should talk about the phone records, the ones showing you and Garrett have been in daily contact for the past 6 months, long before I supposedly went missing. Or the recordings of your conversations, the ones where you discuss how to make sure I didn't survive the train ride. I pulled out a third folder, this one thicker than the others. There's also your financial records. $265,000 in debt. Loans from some very questionable sources. The kind of people who don't just send collection letters when you can't pay. Diana was crying now, her whole body shaking. Garrett had gone very still, his face expressionless. He was calculating, I could tell, trying to figure out if there was any legal angle he could work any way to discredit what I had. There wasn't. Where did you get all this? Garrett asked quietly. This kind of surveillance phone records security footage that's not legal without a warrant. You're right, I said. Which is why I'm not going to the police with it. Not yet, anyway. Both of them looked up at that hope flickering in their eyes. That's what I'd been waiting for. I'm not going to the police, I repeated, because I want something else first. I want to hear you say it, Diana. I want you to admit what you did. Every detail, every calculation, every moment you spent planning how to get rid of me. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. And then we're going to have a conversation about what happens next. Because here's the thing, I've been gone for 5 weeks. Legally, I can stay gone. I can disappear again, and this time it'll be my choice. The insurance claim will be denied. The investigation will go nowhere, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if I'm watching, if I'm listening, if I'm going to show up again when you least expect it. I picked up one of the USB drives and held it up. Or, I said slowly, you can tell me the truth, all of it, right now. And maybe we can find a way forward that doesn't end with both of you in prison. The room fell silent, except for Diana's quiet sobbing and the sound of morning traffic outside. Ethan stood motionless by the kitchen door, his face unreadable. Garrett's jaw was clenched so tight, I could see the muscle jumping. I placed the USB drive back on the table and sat down in the armchair across from them, crossing my legs. Professional, patient. So I said. Who wants to start? I laid out each piece of evidence one by one, watching Diana's face crumble with every revelation. This was what I'd been waiting for, not revenge, but simple, brutal truth laid bare for everyone to see. It was 10:15 a.m. Detective Beckett would arrive in exactly 15 minutes. Vincent was making sure of that. He'd called her 20 minutes ago with an anonymous tip that Theodore Crane had just been spotted at his own house. She'd come. People like Lauren Beckett always came when there was a mystery to solve. The coffee table was covered with printed documents, USB drives, and photographs. Diana and Garrett sat on the couch like defendants in a courtroom, and in a way that's exactly what they were. Let's talk about timeline, I said, pulling out a sheet covered in dates. 6 months ago, Diana, you started calling Garrett Sullivan daily, sometimes multiple times a day. I slid the phone records across the table. 3 pages of calls highlighted in yellow. Now, at first I thought maybe you were just having an affair, but then I noticed something interesting. I pointed to a cluster of calls from 4 months ago. These calls line up exactly with the dates you inquired about my life insurance policy. You called the insurance company 3 times in 1 week, asking about payout procedures and what happens when someone goes missing. Diana's hands shook in her lap. I was just planning for the future, making sure everything was in order. Were you? I pulled out another document. This credit report shows that 4 months ago you were $265,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Personal loans from institutions that charge interest rates that would be illegal if they were regulated. And here, I tapped a particular line, a loan from a private lending service, the kind that doesn't just ruin your credit when you can't pay. Garrett leaned forward. Financial difficulties don't prove, they prove motive, I interrupted. Desperate people do desperate things, and Diana was desperate. I turned to the laptop and pulled up a video file, different from what I'd shown them earlier. This is from a traffic camera 3 blocks from Riverside Station, the morning I went missing. Watch. The video played. Diana's car pulling into a pharmacy parking lot 30 minutes before she met me at the station. She went inside, came out 8 minutes later with a small paper bag. The timestamp was clear. The pharmacy name was visible. Vincent contacted this pharmacy yesterday. Guess what Diana purchased that morning? Motion sickness medication. Strong stuff. The kind that causes severe drowsiness and disorientation, in combination with other substances, respiratory depression. That doesn't prove anything? Garrett said, but his voice had lost its confidence. She could have been feeling sick, except she didn't take any of it. The pills are still in the bottle untouched. What she needed wasn't the pills themselves. It was the liquid form pharmacists keep behind the counter, the one that's faster acting, the one that's easier to slip into someone's coffee. Diana made a small sound, almost like a whimper. I pulled out bank records. 3 months ago, Garrett, you opened a separate savings account, one that Diana has access to. You've been depositing small amounts regularly, nothing that would trigger bank reporting requirements, nothing that would look suspicious. I looked at Garrett directly. You were building a nest egg, getting ready for the payout. $750,000 split between 2 accounts, moved carefully, over time would set both of you up very nicely. That account is for legitimate business, Garrett started. With my daughter-in-law listed as a co-holder, what legitimate business would that be exactly? The room fell silent except for Diana's ragged breathing. I pulled out a small digital recorder. And then we have these. Conversations recorded through the smart home system I had installed 2 years ago. The system that Garrett helped design. Vincent accessed it remotely. Every word spoken in this house for the past 5 weeks has been captured. I pressed play. Diana's voice came through the speaker. We need to make sure he doesn't survive the train ride. Once he's on that train, once the medication kicks in, he'll just disappear. No body means no immediate investigation. Just a missing person case that goes cold. Garrett's voice. And the insurance claim. Diana's voice. We wait 4 weeks. Long enough that it doesn't look suspicious, but not so long that they invoke the 7-year rule. I stopped the playback. I have 17 more recordings like that one. Hours of planning. Hours of you two discussing how to eliminate me and collect the insurance money. That's illegal surveillance, Garrett said, but there was no fight left in his voice. None of it would be admissible. Maybe not. But it establishes a pattern. It establishes conspiracy. And when combined with everything else, the video footage, the pharmacy receipt, the phone records, the insurance claim, it paints a very clear picture. I pulled out the insurance claim itself. $2.5 million. Diana as primary beneficiary. But then here, I pointed to a specific clause. Garrett Sullivan listed as secondary beneficiary with 30%. That's $750,000 going directly to Diana's lawyer. The same lawyer who helped her plan my disappearance. I let that sink in. You wanted me to disappear for money, Diana. I said, my voice dropping lower. $2.5 million. You were willing to destroy my life for that amount. Diana's face crumpled. She was crying now, full gasping sobs. I didn't have a choice, she said, words tumbling out. I was drowning in debt. The people I owed were threatening me. Garrett said this was the only way out. He said if we were careful, if we planned it right, no one would ever know. Diana shut up. Garrett grabbed her arm, but she jerked away. No, I can't do this anymore. I can't. She looked at me, eyes red and desperate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. I thought maybe you'd just be gone, and I could pay off the debts and everything would be okay. But then you came back, and the lights and the voices, and I can't sleep, and I can't. She was unraveling completely now, the confession pouring out in broken pieces. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension like a knife. Ethan moved toward the door. I didn't take my eyes off Diana. Behind me, I heard the door open, and then a familiar voice. Mr. Crane, Theodore Crane. I finally turned around. Detective Lauren Beckett stood in the doorway, 2 uniformed officers behind her. She was staring at me with complete shock. You're alive? She said, almost like she didn't believe it. I nodded slowly. And I have something for you, Detective. I gestured to the coffee table covered in evidence, then to Diana, who was still sobbing on the couch. Everything you need is right here. They cuffed Diana first, then Garrett. I stood in the doorway watching them led toward separate police cars, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, only a deep exhaustion that settled into my bones. Diana was still crying as Detective Beckett read her rights. The words were calm and practiced, delivered with the precision of someone who had said them hundreds of times before. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Diana wasn't silent. She turned toward the house, toward Ethan, desperation cracking her voice. Please, Ethan. I'm your wife. Tell them this is a mistake. Ethan stood beside me, pale and rigid. He didn't answer. For several long seconds, he simply stared at her. The woman he had married, the woman he had trusted, the woman who had tried to erase his father for insurance money. Then he turned away. That was when Diana finally understood. It wasn't just over between her and me. It was over between her and Ethan. Every calculation she had made, every lie she had told, had destroyed her entire life. Garrett said nothing as officers led him to the second patrol car. His eyes stayed fixed on the ground. The confident attorney from an hour earlier was gone, replaced by a man who knew exactly how badly he had lost. Neighbors watched from behind their windows. Curtains shifted. Faces pressed against glass. By morning, all of Riverside would know the story. Theodore Crane, missing for 5 weeks, had returned, and his daughter-in-law had tried to make sure he never did. When the patrol cars pulled away, lights flashing without sirens, Detective Beckett came back inside. Her expression was professional, but there was something else there too, curiosity, perhaps respect. "Mr. Crane," she said, opening her notebook, "I need your official statement. Everything from the beginning." Vincent arrived carrying additional backup drives. Ethan sat on the couch where Diana had been an hour earlier. I told Beckett everything. The coffee, the numbness, Dr. Julia Bennett saving my life, the decision to disappear, 5 weeks of surveillance and evidence. She listened carefully, asking questions, writing steadily. When I finished, she set her pen down. "This is unprecedented," she said. "Some of the evidence you gathered may not be admissible. Home recordings without warrants could raise privacy issues." My stomach tightened. "So they might walk free." "No," she said firmly. "The core evidence is strong. The pharmacy footage came from a public traffic camera. The train station footage is official security video. The insurance claim is public record. And most importantly, we have Diana's confession witnessed and recorded on my body camera." She leaned forward. "What you did gave us probable cause. Now we can proceed legally. Warrants, subpoenas, bank records. You built the map. We'll follow it properly." Vincent asked about charges. "Attempted homicide and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud," Beckett replied. "Mr. Sullivan will also face charges for criminal conspiracy as an attorney." "How long?" I asked quietly. "If convicted, Diana faces 10 to 15 years, Sullivan 8 to 12. The numbers settled heavily in the room. Diana was 32. She would be nearly 50 when she got out. I felt no joy, only exhaustion. We went to the station afterward. My attorney, Frank Richardson, met us there stunned. "Theodore," he said, gripping my hand. "I can't believe this." "Help me handle what comes next," I said. "Of course. We'll need a criminal specialist for your testimony. And Ethan's divorce proceedings will need immediate attention." Ethan nodded silently. At the station, I gave my formal statement. Signed documents. Submitted evidence. Beckett confirmed Diana and Garrett would be held without bail due to flight risk and premeditation. It was nearly 5 when we stepped outside. The sunlight felt harsh after the fluorescent interior. Ethan walked beside me, silent. Finally, he spoke. "What now, Dad?" I studied him. He had lost his wife today, not to death, but to betrayal. Now, I said, we rebuild what's left. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow," he said. "Frank's preparing everything." "I know. I can't stay in that house." "Stay with me," I said. "It's big enough, and I could use the company." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." Vincent pulled up with the car. As we got in, I looked back at the station. Inside, Diana and Garrett were being processed, fingerprinted, photographed. Their new reality had begun. This wasn't the end. There would be trials and appeals. Months, maybe years of legal battles. But the truth was out. Justice was moving, and I was alive to see it. 6 months later, I was kneeling in Angela's garden, planting white roses under the April sun. The house felt like home again. Not the old home, but home nonetheless. My knees protested as I dug into the soil. 72 years old, and I felt every one of them. But here, with dirt under my fingernails and sun warming my back, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. "Dad, you need help with that." Ethan stood at the porch steps, coffee mug in hand. He'd been living with me since the arrest, 6 months now. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. "It could use another set of hands," I said. He knelt beside me and we worked in comfortable silence. The way we used to when he was young and I'd teach him about gardening. Those were good memories. Simple ones. "Mom would have loved these," Ethan said, touching a white petal. "Your mother loved all flowers, but white roses were special. She used to say they meant new beginnings." "Is that what this is, a fresh start?" "I think so. We're still here, still standing. That counts for something." He smiled slightly. "I'm opening that consulting firm next month. Finally signed the lease. You'll be excellent at it." We finished planting and stood back. The garden was coming back to life slowly but surely. My mind drifted to 3 months ago, the courtroom. I hadn't wanted to go, but I needed to see it through. Needed to watch justice actually happen. The courtroom had been packed. Media covering what they called the ghost's revenge. A sensational headline that completely missed the point. This wasn't about revenge. Diana had looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit, thinner. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, she'd started crying. Quiet at first, then louder. 12 years. Attempted harm conspiracy to commit fraud, insurance fraud. 12 years in federal prison. Garrett Sullivan got 10 years. His law license was revoked. His career, like Diana's life, was effectively over. When Diana was let out, she'd looked at Ethan one last time. She'd mouthed something, maybe, "I'm sorry." It didn't matter. Ethan hadn't looked back. His hand had found mine, then gripping tight. And we'd sat there together until the courtroom emptied. That evening, Vincent came over for dinner. It had become a weekly tradition, the three of us gathering around the dining table, the same table where Angela used to sit. "How's the business?" Vincent asked Ethan. "Growing. I've got 3 clients already." "Word of mouth is the best advertising," Vincent said. We ate and talked about mundane things, business plans, the weather, Vincent's latest project. Normal conversations. The kind of evening that felt precious now. After dessert, Ethan asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Dad, do you regret it? Everything you did? The haunting, the surveillance, all of it." I set down my coffee cup and thought about it. Really thought about it. "I regret that it had to happen," I said. "I regret that someone I trusted was capable of that. I regret that your marriage ended the way it did." I looked at my son. "But do I regret fighting back? No. Sometimes standing up for the truth is all we have." Ethan nodded slowly. "She wrote me a letter last month. From prison. I hadn't known that." "Did you read it?" "Yeah. She said she was sorry, that she was desperate and made terrible choices. She asked if I'd forgive her someday." "Will you?" "I don't know. Maybe. But not today. Not for a long time." "That's fair. Forgiveness isn't something you can rush." Vincent raised his coffee cup. "To moving forward, whatever that looks like." We clinked our cups together. After Vincent left, I sat alone on the porch in Angela's old chair. The white roses we'd planted swayed in the evening breeze, their fragrance drifting across the yard. I closed my eyes and whispered into the gathering darkness. I'm still here, sweetheart. Still fighting. Still living. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt at peace, not happiness. Peace and happiness aren't always the same thing. Angela's death had taken happiness from me 4 years ago. Diana's betrayal had taken my sense of safety 6 months ago. But peace was something I could build again. The roses would bloom by June. Ethan's business would open in May. Life would continue scarred, but steady. Justice wasn't revenge. It was standing up for truth even when it cost everything. It was choosing to live when someone wanted you gone. It was planting white roses in April and believing they would bloom. The evening air was cool. Inside, I could hear Ethan washing dishes, humming something under his breath. A normal sound. A living sound. I smiled into the darkness and stood up. There was still work to do, gardens to tend, a son to support, a life to rebuild. But tonight, on this porch, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. Home. And to you listening to this family story, remember this. I never wanted to become the man who spent 5 weeks hiding in a cabin, watching his own house like a ghost. That's not the family story I wanted to tell my grandchildren someday. But sometimes life forces your hand, and you have to choose between lying down or standing up. God knows I made mistakes along the way. When Diana handed me that coffee at the train station, I trusted her completely. Maybe God was testing my faith, or maybe he was teaching me that blind trust is just another word for foolishness. Either way, I learned the hard way that not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests at heart. This dad revenge, if that's what you want to call it, wasn't about anger. It was about truth. Some people think dad revenge means lashing out, destroying everything in your path. But real dad revenge is colder, more calculated. It's about making sure the truth comes to light, no matter what it costs you. Don't be like me. Don't wait until someone tries to eliminate you before you start paying attention. Watch for the warning signs. Listen to that voice in your head, or maybe it's God speaking when something doesn't feel right. I ignored too many red flags because I wanted to believe the best in people. Here's what I learned from this family story. Forgiveness is possible, but it doesn't mean forgetting. Ethan might forgive Diana someday, but our family will never be what it was. That's the real cost of betrayal, not just what's taken from you, but what can never be rebuilt. My dad revenge didn't bring Angela back. It didn't erase the fear I felt on that train when my fingers went numb and I thought I was dying. But it did give me something: closure, the knowledge that I fought back, that I didn't go quietly into the darkness Diana had planned for me. If you found meaning in this family story, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you handle it? And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps me continue bringing these real-life lessons to light. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I know this wasn't an easy story to hear. It certainly wasn't easy to live through. And one final note: the stories I share may contain fictionalized elements crafted for educational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. I respect your choice, and I hope you find what you're looking for. Until next time, stay vigilant, trust wisely, and remember, God helps those who help themselves, but only after you've done the hard work first. This is Theodore Crane signing off.